Welcome back to Close Up. As a first-time candidate for Congress, Lily Tang Williams managed a solid showing in the 2022 Republican primary for New Hampshire's 2nd Congressional District, finishing a close third, not far behind the top two candidates. Right now, she's the only major Republican candidate on the campaign trail against Annie Kuster, and she might be able to clear the field. Lily Tang Williams is our guest this morning on Close Up. Lily, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for having me back.
So, as we noted, in terms of people who have name recognition, it's pretty much just you right now in the Republican field. In some ways, though, that can be an ominous sign because Annie Kuster has this long record-setting winning streak in New Hampshire elections. How do you convince your fellow Republicans that this isn't a lost cause in the 2nd District?
Well, on the campaign trail, people tell me that she has lost in touch with the voters in 2nd District. She become more elitist, and the bills she voted and supporting Robert Stamp, Biden's economics policies and border policies, and the people are not happy with that because that's on top of their issues now. It's a border crisis and Bidenomics and inflation, cost everything's going up and people are suffering now. And she has not had town halls for many years. And so people say, what has she been doing in Washington these days? And people like me, they like my American dream stories. They connect with me pretty well. And I listen to them too.
The House Republican Study Committee just released several budget proposals. One of them is to raise the retirement age for Social Security. Are you on board with that?
Oh, I have not studied that carefully because whenever they have this omnibus bills, it's always like 1,000 pages for one day. It's like impossible to read it. I wish they would take time, not to procrastinate so people can have a more open discussion, debate about that. And I do worry about our national debt, $34 trillion now. And every day we are paying down the national debt. Interest alone is $2 billion per day. I just don't know how they're ever going to address that because young people tell me they feel like they have no future and they cannot afford anything and they're worried about their American dream. So I hope that I can address that when I get elected.
And so, but the idea of, raising the retirement age for younger people in Social Security later, is that an idea that you would support?
Well, if that's the only way we can keep Social Security solvent, because right now, some people say we might run out of, money, there's no lockbox and government spend it all, so you depend on future generations' money working to, support the retirees. And so, you just have to be open-minded about what kind of proposal that is,
In these proposals, they're also calling for protections of fetal life at the earliest stages. As soon as an egg is fertilized, that could put IVF fertility care at risk. Is that a problem for you? Do you think people should have access to IVF care?
Yes, because some people are desperate to become parents, and children are most precious part of your life. And I'm a mother of 3. And I support that people should have right to do the IVF. But as I said, I have not studied the details of bill. Remember, the phrase is like devils are in the details. Yeah.
Right, and certainly IVF is a tricky one for people who identify as the sort of traditional pro-life and pro-choice because in some ways it requires acknowledging that there is a nascent human life there, but also with IVF it involves sometimes those embryos are destroyed. So how would you support access to IVF in Congress? Would you support a bill that would codify that?
You know what? I general principle, I support people to choose that to become a mother if they exhausted other options. I have no issue with that. But as I said, codify that and depends on the language, right? How they are addressed and have to put into the whole bill the content. I don't like huge bills, and I like to have a single smaller bills address a single issue specifically instead of put lots of other junk into it and confuse people. So I have to study bill carefully. I'm a very independent minded, so I cannot be put in the box.
All right. Former President Trump faces seizure of his assets potentially in this business fraud trial that he was in. Reports are he can't secure the bond necessary to put that money forward while he appeals. Now, if a foreign company steps forward and tries to help him out, is that a concern for you that it might potentially compromise him if the money that comes in to help him is from another country?
Oh, I have not looked into that, and it just. I do generally feel it's kind of sad that our judicial independence is being weaponized against a front runner, a presumptive nominee for Republican Party to run for president. And as some investors said, the New York become not investable because they fine you huge, unbelievable amount of money in the civil case when there are no victims, and so that they say that was a fraud. But then and give this huge fine amount, he cannot afford it, trying to bankrupt people. Look, no matter how you personally feel about former President Trump, but weaponize the judicial system and without an equality protection under the law, it's just not right. I'm really concerned about that because that kind of remind me, what happened in China when you go after your political opponents like that.
What if, though, he needs this money? What if it's a Chinese company that comes forward with, potentially CCP influence there that gives him this money? Is that an issue for you? Would that be a problem?
I have to look into that. I even don't know what is the current law we have about, when you want to bond companies to help you to help you to pay to issue bonds, and I don't know. Actually, I have not looked into that.
You've been obviously a very critical, vocal critic, I should say, of the Chinese Communist Party. You escaped from the country at a young age and have been a vocal proponent of America and its policies. We've spoken before about how they kind of keep track of you, and there is cyberbullying that goes on. What will happen if you're the nominee? Do you think they will step up these kind of attacks that they make on you from afar?
Well, they're trying to do character assassination already, and somebody told me there was a TikTok video in Chinese and trying to tell people, don't vote for me, don't trust her, and last time when I ran, I got a death threat from a Beijing account on Twitter and said, hey, and PLA, which is the People's Liberation Army, is going to crush your doggy head. That's a very Chinese way to threaten you, to kill you, is crush your doggy head. And I took a screenshot. I put the English translation out there to tell people, hey, I will never disappear and never kill myself. I'm very happy living here. So I think I'm prepared. They will do nasty slanders and dark money might come in to support my opponents. But I trust people.
You could be physically at risk, though, from the CCP as the nominee, you think?
Well, that I feel pretty safe in New Hampshire because we have constitutional carry, thank goodness. But I think that when I go to like California, New York, and sometimes give speeches, and I do have people to hire security for me, and because I'm a sticker, because I'm putting myself out there so I can be targeted. But I just feel it's my duty, though. I cannot just live in fear to say, because they threaten me, I should just drop out and not to run, not to speak up. I just cannot do that because I truly believe I'm fighting a good cause and to keep an American dream alive here.
Obviously, Congress just passed legislation to try to force the sale of TikTok to an American-held company, and there's still concerns about what kind of influence the CCP might have there. But what else should Congress be doing to limit Chinese influence in America?
Well, congressional oversight is needed when it comes to the Chinese companies coming here to purchase, agricultural land near our especially military bases. And also that our climate change agenda is kind of empower Chinese companies to rely on them for supplies like batteries and EV and cars. And it makes you wonder that, why we have this kind of policies, but then give taxpayers money and to foreign companies like China who will come here. At the same time, we're trying to, stop their infiltration and indoctrinate our children through TikTok. It just does not make sense. There's so much stuff we can do. We need to reevaluate our entire, China's policy. It has been kind of outdated and it's not consistent. And if you want to really get rid of Chinese Communist Party influence, you got to look at their infiltration into our business. For example, they own one of the 4 large food processing companies, and they used to own AMC and have influence over Hollywood. They have a Confucius Institute infiltrating our schools and colleges to kind of spread their propaganda. China is wonderful, even though Chinese people really are being abused by their own government.
Right. There's
so
a lot of friction,
a
lot of friction, a lot of slow conflict. Do you think we are headed for war with China this century?
Well, that I'm hoping not. And Xi Jinping is a dictator. He wants to be the new Mao, and he's facing lots of internal power, like struggles. But he can be crazy, do something unpredictable. So we just have to, look at all the potential options and backups.
All right, Lily Tang Williams, thank you for joining us on Close Up. We'll see you on the trail.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.